I'm a developer. So I want you all to think about, I know you're business analysts. This is a group of business analysts, excuse me. But think about what your code is as you listen to the presentation. Humans are hard, code is easy. Here's a string of thoughts that ran across my mind early in my programming career. Why can't people just leave me alone and I can do my work? I can figure this out myself. I don't need others' help or any input to turn this thing around. Why don't people understand me? I think it must be they're just dumb. They don't recognize genius when they see it. Perhaps you've been there too, a frustrated developer who feels like they know enough. However, the success you thought you'd have is out of reach. You see others who make better strides, but why? Is it a skills gap? I want to share with you how I learned about my skills gap. Java, check. Linux, check. SQL, check. Humans, what? Humans are hard. Code is easy. So I focused on the technology. One of my first mentors was a database administrator named Doyle. He really knew his stuff, but didn't say much. That can make learning challenging. One thing Doyle would do is fix the problem for me. Doyle would fix it so quickly and then leave. What did you do? He was already gone. Working with Doyle gave me some insight. Technical people hate explaining basic stuff. Ask them a simple question and they will flip the bozo bit on you. What is the bozo bit, you say? A few years after working with Doyle, I got to work with a software architect named Corey. He had many interesting observations. One thing Corey would do if you asked him a stupid question, one that you could have answered by doing some basic research on your own, he wouldn't answer your question or work with you. That, my friends, is the bozo bit. Bozo, of course, refers to Bozo the clown. Bit in reference to a computer bit or binary storage. Now, Corey was pretty extreme, but many developers can be that way. To gain respect from those developers, we need to know the technology. Humans are hard, code is easy. So I focused on the coding. I learned new technologies. I tried to keep my head down and avoid getting the bozo bit getting flipped on me. A few years later, I transitioned into a new job, technical lead. One year during my annual evaluation, my leader said to me, "Tom, we think you have solid credentials. Coding skills got you the job, but we need you to develop other skills." My leader shared with me where I was failing. Delegation. He shared how I wasn't delegating work to my teammates. Case in point, there was an upgrade that needed to be done. I did the work in 10 minutes. To explain that to a few teammates would have taken twice that amount of time or more. Another trap I fell into with delegation is a belief in our value. We can convince ourselves that we are worth more when others can't do the same work as us. I remember working with Jamie the first time. I wasn't quite sure he knew what we were doing. He was always done quickly. Then I finally asked him. Here he had created a script to deploy changes and update dependencies. Oh, I was doing this all manually. I was worried about delegation. The people I worked with had better ideas. Perhaps I didn't know everything I thought I did. A few years later, I got to work with a leader named John. We knew each other through a mutual friend. I had begun to coach individuals and teams. John wanted an outside resource to help him change his team's mindset. He shared how most IT people work with others in a transactional fashion. We get the requirements and we solve the issue. John said, "Tom, my team is like bank tellers. They get asked to fix something and they do, just like a teller gets a check and deposits the check. I want my team to be more like financial planners. A financial planner builds a relationship, then they can anticipate needs." So you're saying, John, you want your team to have better relationships with their customers? John said, "Tom, if my team develops relationships, they will get empathy and understanding." relationships, understanding and empathy? Huh? That won't work. That's what I thought at the time, but I was wrong. John knew his team wasn't as understanding and as empathetic as he'd hoped they'd be. He began requiring them to talk to the community directors when they traveled. These conversations helped them empathize. Instead of just fixing the problem, they fostered relationships too. Each little change John made helped his team understand the community directors had many things on their plate. These conversations worked the other way too. The community directors began to give John's team space. If something went wrong, they trusted them to resolve it. John proved me wrong. He overcame his deficit by being curious and empathetic. He was able to change the way his team interacted with the organization. So much so that he has since been given additional responsibilities. From bank tellers to financial planners, he remade the image of his IT team. This brings me to my main idea. Coding skills got you the job. Influence will get you the career. Coding skills got you the job. Influence will get you the career. What do I mean? Developers are focusing on technology skills only. If we truly want to set ourselves apart, we need to know how to influence and collaborate with teams. Gone are the days when we could just send in requirements with pizza and out pops code. Organizations are looking for more from their developers. The problem, my problem, was I was terrible at relationships. I had confirmation. I had proof. Although I didn't start out as a developer though. My first stop in my professional career was quite different. My first job out of college, it seems like yesterday. I started at Wallace. What is Wallace, you say? We sold business forms and office supplies in Des Moines, Iowa, kind of like Dunder Mifflin. Armed with a business management degree and no real idea, I had 3 job options as I graduated from college. I could sell insurance, or I could sell life insurance, or I could sell business forms. So I did what any sane person would do. I sold business forms. Who wants to call on our friends' parents for insurance anyways? Did I mention that Des Moines, Iowa is the insurance capital of the world? Back to my first day at Wallace. Can you believe I had to make a few cold calls before lunch? Let me remind you, in college, the only time I called my friends was when we were having a kegger. Getting people to buy business forms is a bit more difficult than getting college students to drink beer. Now, I really didn't want to make those calls, but lunch was getting close. I was given 3 prospects from another sales representative to call on. Hello, is Mike Huff available? Yeah, can you tell him that Tom Henriksen called? Yeah, I'm from Wallace. Click. Hello, this is Tom Henriksen, your new Wallace representative. Oh, sorry, Mr. Hagna. I apologize if our labels fall off your product. Click. Whoa, I guess we got disconnected there. Must have been a bad connection. Okay, just one more and we can go to lunch. What? Do we call on gentlemen's clubs? My coworkers all die laughing. Turns out this is their way of initiating new sales representatives. My sales career went down in flames pretty quickly. Similar to Tommy Boy, my sales techniques were not appreciated. Soon after my first day in sales, I started to realize this wasn't going anywhere. A friend of mine from high school shared with me the opportunity in technology, so I began to pursue a different path and get a new degree. I left my job in sales and began work as a developer. Now, working as a developer is quite a bit different than working in sales. The sales office I worked in was always full of people talking. They would be talking on the phones to customers or talking to each other. The developers I worked with, well, they were a quiet bunch on the whole. Friday afternoon with the sales office, the newest rep had to go get beer for everyone. Friday afternoon for the developers was quiet, just like the rest of the week. Now, perhaps it's starting to sound like I didn't want to make this change, but I slowly began to realize I was more Spock than Jimmy Fallon. The quiet contemplative work of a developer suited me more. As my development career began, I worked with lots of different technologies. I wanted to move into something more current. I started to hear a lot of buzz around the Java language. In my free time and nights and weekends, I would read and work through tutorials online. All this work paid off a few months later when a company leader came to me and said, "Tom, would you be able to help Dave with a new application?" Turned out they needed someone who could write an application using Java. I, of course, agreed. Like Luke beginning to use the Force, I was starting with some basics. As my Java skills began to improve from experience, I learned a few other things too. I began to work with someone who is quite sharp from a technical perspective. But Eric wasn't easy to get along with. He would yell at people he worked with. You might say he was a complete jerk sometimes. The managers and team allowed this to happen in a large part because he was productive. I can still see it now when I close my eyes. Now, Eric was a smoker, and he was trying to quit, which made him even testier. Eric and Sri were working together on some files. When I came walking down a row of cubes, I could see Eric in Sri's cube yelling. You know how people get mad and their veins look like they're going to pop out of their head? Eric's veins were about ready to explode. Then he ran out the door. I guess he needed a smoke. I asked Sri if he was okay. He said, "Yeah, I'm okay, but no one should have to put up with him." Sri couldn't have been more correct. Eric was a tyrant who ran around like Darth Vader, intimidating people. And we all put up with his terrible treatment just because he was able to code a lot. Now, I would like to tell you that Eric was let go and the team was able to move on. The company did nothing to him. His behavior was left unhandled. Eric wasn't a team player. He was out for himself. If you work with a coding hero and they take vacation, things can fall apart. Let me share a story about a leader who dealt with a similar issue. Now, Ben was a leader I worked with, and he had a coding hero. We'll call him Dave. Dave would code solutions that were more complex than others could understand. Now, Dave was coming up on a milestone birthday. To celebrate, he was going to bike across multiple states with all his gear. So he took off 3 weeks. Now, Ben knew this was going to be an issue. So he met with the team and they discussed these challenges. The team decided to begin to have knowledge transfer sessions with Dave. Ben helped foster this collaboration. It also allowed the team to slowly chip away at the knowledge gap, and the team became more resilient. My next stop, I began to master my skills in Java. I was responsible for an application that required me to learn some new technologies. Software development is a bit like trending song sales on iTunes. One day something's hot, the next day it's out of date. During this time in my career, many open source tools became popular. Mastery for Luke Skywalker came after a battle with Darth Vader. Programmers have small battles each day. Programming is a lot like writing. As the author Stephen Pressfield says, the amateur tweets, the pro works. Professional programmers show up every day and slay small demons. Now, the first skill I needed to master as a developer was debugging. Of course, today the tools are much more mature. One of the first applications I had to debug, I was armed with print statements and a log file. Quite primitive by today's standards. All right, let's see here. Where is that value being set? Okay, let's add a print statement there. Recompile, run the report. Oh, compile error, forgot the semicolon. All right, we add the semicolon, recompile, run the report, tail the log. Oh, the database, I forgot to update the database. Okay, let me update that table, run the report, tail the log. Now that looks better. Of course, debugging is so much easier today, but we still need to use the old bean. As Steve McConnell points out in his book, Code Complete, we need to learn the types of mistakes we make. I remember early in my Java career, I made the same mistake time and again. I would forget to initialize my variables. I could still hear my coworker Ken laughing at me when he would look at my code. We need to take a step back and reflect on how we are doing. How can I improve my coding, debugging, and testing? Software developers like to impress each other. I had to use the singleton pattern to fix that. Don't worry if you don't understand that. Most developers don't either. Now, there are many esoteric topics we can talk about for hours. In Essentialism, The Disciplined Pursuit of Less by Greg McKeown, he shares how important editing is to journalism. Now, the journalists bring the stories and write up the ideas. However, the editor has the important piece. They review the piece and rework it. Over my years, I've mentored many developers. One in particular sticks out. He began reading about code basics. Now, this made him add unnecessary code from time to time. I remember debugging an error he was getting together when I asked him, "Why is this loop here?" When he looked at me unsure and said, I don't know. I thought it would help. He thought it would help. Once we removed his unnecessary loop, we resolved his error. Adding code is easy. Knowing what to keep is hard. Now, it's not that I'm saying computer science basics are not important. We need to master these too. However, if we put our sole focus on them, our careers will falter. Now, I spoke before about Eric. He had mastered computer science. Now, his teammates, though, couldn't stand him. We need to be good at our work and get along with our teams. If we do just one of these, we aren't doing our job. All right, that is the first part of Humans Are Hard, Code is Easy. Just going to take a break here. Does anyone have any questions? Feel free to share them in the chat or come off mute.
All I can say, Tom, is I started out doing programming a long time ago, longer than I'd prefer to admit, but I could relate to a lot of what you're saying. So it's spot on. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, there's a lot of, as I give this to different groups, I've given this to a lot of BA groups, a lot of developer groups, project management groups. I get a lot of similar. It's interesting how people seem to move within the roles a bit too, kind of like you have, Mom. So one question I want to ask you guys, I won't put this in the chat, but it kind of has to deal with, so the first part, we talked about relationships. So you kind of heard me talk a little bit about John. So what John did, and you'll see, he really helped me understand professional relationships and how we have to foster them. And you're going to see that even more later in the presentation. But my question to you guys, and you're here today in an IIBA group, this is probably one good way of fostering professional relationships, but maybe share some other things that you've done to help foster those relationships. Depends on the industry. Don't treat people like bank transactions. Yes, yes. Get to know people on a personal level. Drinks after work. Yeah. Lots of good ideas. Yeah, you got to keep tabs. Zoom lunch. Yeah, that's a good one, especially now in our current state of affairs. Very good. +1 on all of the above. Yeah, lots of good things there. Integrity, do what you committed to deliver. Yes. That's important, isn't it? Excuse me, Garen. Very good. Very good. Work hard on trust. I love working closely with developers. It also helps me better understand how to write requirements. Yeah. Yeah, that's kind of important, isn't it? That relationship and kind of understanding each role, isn't it? That's very good. All right. My certifications also impact the way I develop professional. Yeah, that's true. Good point, Trish. Yeah, those certifications are important. So now I want to ask you guys this question now. Maybe you have, but I know a lot of times I tell the story about me working in sales first. A lot of people say that's a pretty interesting transition. So, but what career, if you've gone through any career transitions, and I know Bob kind of mentioned that earlier, he had been a developer before, or I think worked a little bit in that. So, you might talk through if you've gone through any transitions and maybe what you've learned. So as you see, I learned some different things, but I think it's very important to not to discount those skills that you learn. So. Current BA and front end web development. Okay, yeah. So you're considering, it sounds like you're considering a transition there. Trish has been in different industries. Yeah. That's good. That probably helps you. I'm guessing Trish as a BA to kind of understand a few different industries. Yeah. To you are them. Yes, that's a good point, Bob. Yeah, it's kind of goes back to the old expression, you need to walk in someone else's shoes. Immigration and teaching. Yeah, in teaching and immigration. Yeah, those are some interesting places to be. I know worked with a few developers that have been in education or BAs that have been in teachers as well. So that's interesting. Very good. Yeah, definitely learned from making transitions. Yeah, you learn a lot, don't you, Trish? That's very good. Change can be hard, even if you want to. Yes, Bonnie. That's right. Change is not easy, but we all have to do it, don't we? I started in healthcare desk. Okay. Wow. A lot of different things. Lotus Notes developer. Yeah. Business analyst. That's what I love doing. Oh, good. Well, that's good. You do what you enjoy. That's always helpful. Awesome. All right. One more question here. I'm going to pop in the chat. So as you kind of heard, as we wrapped up that last section there, talked a little bit of moving from the biz side to the tech side. That's an interesting transition, isn't it, Travis? So, but as we wrapped up that last portion, I just want to ask a question about, and I think this is probably very important for your group because I'm guessing a lot of you in the IIBA chapter get to do a little mentoring. So how have you been able to mentor others? Maybe it's been through the IIBA chapter, maybe it's been at work, but what are some things you've done to mentor some people, mentor others? Acquiring skills and getting certified. Yeah, good time to share my experiences. Very good. Yeah, those are good things to do. Lead our BABAC study group. Yeah, that's good, Bob. Onboard new BAs and the team and new BA in general. Oh, yeah. Shadow your facilitation. That's good. Yeah, facilitation is so important. That's a good skill to help people with. Business terms. Yeah, that's good. You can probably do some translation, I'm guessing, Travis, for that. Denise, I always try to share my knowledge when opportunity arises. That's good. Yeah, we never know when those opportunities can come up, don't they? Can come up in lots of different places, can't they, Denise? Studying materials, advise, horror stories. Yes, Trish, there are a lot of those, aren't they? Those horror stories. Everybody's got them, but they're good. Good things. We learn the hard way, don't we? Excellent. Our way equals the best way. Yep. That is true. That is true. The school of hard knocks, as they say. Excellent. All right. Well, any other questions before we jump into the second half of this presentation? I'll just pause and see if anyone has any. All right. With that, we will jump into the second part of Humans Are Hard, Code is Easy. As I learned more about soft skills, my career progressed. First as a developer, then I moved into a senior developer role. Next, I was a technical lead. Finally, I moved into manager of software development. I was really feeling good about my career progression. Now, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was a Friday morning in May. I took my kids to school and came into the office at my normal time, a little before 8 a.m. Oddly enough, my boss was in. He usually came in at 9 or after. Anyways, I sat down and unpacked my things. Then Scott, my boss, came to my desk and said, "Tom, can I talk with you?" I said, "Sure," and I followed Scott down the hallway. Although when he came to his office, he took a right instead. That's strange, I thought as I followed Scott down the hallway. Then he took a left into Sandy's office. Excuse me. Who is Sandy, you ask? Well, she was the director of human resources. We sat down, and then Scott said, "Tom, this is your last day here." If you've ever had that said to you at work or in a relationship, you know what it feels like. The rest was strange as I felt a calm come over me. I knew something was going to happen. Although as I looked across the table, I could tell Scott and Sandy felt terrible. They discussed the next steps. I packed my things and left. Getting fired gives us a good chance to reflect. What did we do wrong? How could this have been avoided? As I look back, I realized one lesson first. What led to this was a lack of clarity. I did not clearly understand an objective. Therefore, the team I led didn't execute accordingly. Processing this took time, though, as we can get frustrated and want to blame others. However, we need to own our mistakes. That helped me move forward. The second lesson I learned was the importance of relationship management. As John taught us earlier, we need to continually foster our connections. I began to reach out to my network, and the opportunities were plentiful. So even in something as trying as getting fired can be a moment for learning. We just need to take the time to unpack it. Mastering basic skills requires guidance. Early in my career, I worked with Wei. He instilled in me a systemic approach that I still use today. Now, essentially, software development is problem solving. But Wei began to notice oftentimes I was trying to solve 5 different things at once. Now, Wei's guidance was brought clear to me a few years later when I attended Michael Hyatt's Best Year Ever conference. Michael discussed goal setting, and he said, "Detailed plans are great if you're building a nuclear submarine. For everything else, just focus on the next step." So Wei and Michael agreed on this point. Don't overthink it. In Proverbs, it is said, "In the multitude of counselors, there is safety." Luke's journey first brought him to Obi-Wan Kenobi, where he learned some basics, similar to what I learned from Wei. He kept learning, and so have I. Reflection doesn't come easy for me. I want to move on to the next thing. In David Marquis' book, Leadership is Language, he details the red work, the doing, and the blue work, the thinking. In the book, he discusses how important they both are to making progress. He uses the Industrial Revolution as an example, where the workers did the red work and the managers did the blue work. Today, knowledge workers must do both. We need to take a step back and reflect on how we are doing. How can I or we do this better? Think, apply, reflect. By now you're starting to think, "Tom, I'm a developer. I don't need no stinking soft skills." Of course, if you don't want your career to get better, keep on keeping on. My career path has changed dramatically as I've learned the importance of communication, relationships, and influence. Let's explore 3 core soft skills. These will set the stage for a career transformation. So remember, coding skills got you the job, influence will get you the career. Number 1, communication. Listen to what is being said. Ask good questions and seek clarity. Developers who do this write better code. They don't assume they know the answer. In the book, The Pragmatic Programmer, Andy Hunt and Dave Thomas talk about the importance of digging for requirements. We need to look between the lines. Part of communication is knowing your message. Too many times in my career, I've just started talking. Know what you want to say and say it. Number 2, influence. In How to Win Friends and Influence People, Dale Carnegie describes how we need to talk in terms of the other person's interests. Now, I have to confess, one time I tried to convince a corporate vice president we should use a new technology. He wasn't interested at all. However, the next time I spoke to him, I aligned a technical change with a corporate objective. The outcome of that conversation was quite different. Number 3 of the 3 core soft skills is leading change. When we want to lead a change, we need to share the vision. A few years ago, I was fortunate to work with a sharp product owner named Nakia. We began working together on an application for customer service representatives. As we began, the team struggled with understanding the vision. That's when Nakia decided we needed a field trip. She had the entire team spend a day with those customer service representatives. We got to see their struggles. We came back energized and with a better understanding. Nakia was able to lead a change by connecting and sharing the vision with the team. These 3 core soft skills can change your career. Let me share a story how I use them myself. In my first role as a manager, I tried to get to know the team. This can help build trust and influence with them. Now, perhaps you're starting to think, Tom, this won't work for me. Let me tell you about AJ. His path was a rocky one. AJ was a strong developer, but he rarely talked. He worked in a slow, methodical fashion and always kept his emotions in check. Over time, his teammates became irritated with his style. I tried to get to know him. For instance, we connected on a few things. AJ traveled to Germany to pick up his new BMW. He was quite excited about that. Still, his unwillingness to talk with others, and especially the product owner, was wearing thin. That's when my manager came to me and said, Tom, it is time for AJ to decide if he wants to be part of the team. My manager asked me to put AJ on a PIP, or performance improvement plan. I had 60 days to help him improve or else. The product owner was ready to give up on him. Despite his strong coding skills, his career was on a downward trajectory. I got the product owner to give AJ one final shot. In the end, we were able to give AJ the space he needed. He was able to stay and come through it. Through coaching him and his teammates, we worked through it. AJ was able to develop the soft skills he needed to change his career direction. I was able to coach and influence the team using the 3 core soft skills. Coding is important, but it's not enough. We can keep our head down and bozo it through our career, but that won't get us where we want to go. Communication matters. Relationships matter. Empathy and understanding matter. Practicing these soft skills can give you more influence, which leads to more success. Better collaboration with your coworkers, people seeking out your opinion as an expert, managers choosing you for the most exciting projects. Practicing soft skills is how you code the future of your dreams. All right, that is the last half of the speech, humans are hard, code is easy. I'm going to stop and see if there's any questions. Feel free to share them in the chat or come off mute.
Hey, Tom, I could relate to a little bit of that. I had a friend, and we worked in the same area as programmers, and we had the same manager. And the manager would talk to me about this guy. I won't say his name, but
Yeah.
it was years ago. And I still remember like vividly the disgust on his face when he said this. He said, I'll just call him P, first letter of his name. He's like, he gets all this work done, but he leaves so many bodies in his wake. And, he just had that look of disgust on his face when he said it. And I knew that, that person wasn't going to be working for him too long. And that's what happened.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. It's interesting, as you mentioned that as I give this speech, a lot of people kind of, they hear, for instance, like AJ, and they hear Eric's story. So those two people in there, they're kind of somewhat a similar, difficult, I guess we'll say, people to work with. And of course, as you mentioned, those aren't their real names either. But yeah, that seems like that's a common, I suppose we'd say, anti-pattern in the technology industry, that we allow a lot of that to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Good question. Good comments. All right. So I have a question for you here. So you heard, as the first portion of that second half, I had a career misstep there. So just as you guys, maybe you not to say you have had the same misstep as I, but maybe for instance, maybe you've said something to the wrong person in a meeting, or offended somebody who you didn't know was, maybe you started a new job and offended your leader before you knew who they were. I don't know. It seems like we've all kind of, as we talked a little bit before about some of the hard way, and we've made mistakes, but just if some things that maybe you've learned from those career missteps.
This is Bob again. I can share one other story. When I was going through my MBA program, I took a psychology class, and the guy who was in charge of that, he was kind of tall, he was lanky, he was thin, he looked a little bit nerdy, and he got his PhD young. So, and he said, I never did this again. But what he did was, he went into his class on the first day, and he sat among the students, right? And they're all waiting for the professor to show up, and they're starting to get anxious and starting to buzz. So he stands up and says, gee, this is a psychology class. I said, I think our professor would probably want us to introduce ourselves and say a little bit about ourselves. And, one of the big jock guys said, why don't you just sit down and shut up? And, his point was, sometimes you don't know who has the authority in the room. So you just have to be really careful about, who you're dealing with until you really know who you're dealing with. And you shouldn't say that anyway. But he said that guy almost dropped out of his class because he was afraid that, he was going to fail him because of what he said. And, he said, I never did that again, but it was a pretty interesting scenario. So I think that could apply a lot to work too.
Yes. Kind of goes to what Denise had put in the chat there. Know your audience in all situations. So that's important.
Yeah.
Met my number one critic. One critic earned his trust. Become my number one supporter.
Anyone
True.
else have
That's true. Yeah, went from critic to supporter. That's a good transition if you can do that.
This is Ronnie. Have similar story. I was in junior college right after high school. Kind of took summer class, math class. So we some of us took it together, and we were in the same math class. And so everybody wanted to know how the one of the questions on the final exam was solved. So I got onto the board and tried solving it. So everybody was new in that next algebra class. So everybody thought I was the professor. So they thought, I'm going to be teaching the class. But then the professor came over, and he sat down because he already knew me. And he was watching me what I was doing. So he kind of figured out that I was solving some question from the previous class. So then we swapped the spots. So everybody started laughing.
That's interesting. Thanks for sharing that, Ronnie. That's good.
Yeah, I have something to share too. If you can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Patrick.
Oh yeah, okay. That's Patrick. I'm sure maybe someone also may have this kind of experience. You know, I was in a company that has like starting out with kind of neutral type of opinion about the technology regarding C# and Java. So in the company, in the shop, we basically have both going on. Then suddenly there's someone that is really strong, keen, strong liking with C# and rose to power, basically. But I'm on the Java camp. And one day he wanted more like make people say what they really like, right? Well, it's kind of like make an architecture and want people to kind of vote for it, right? And express their opinion. And my opinion is that Java is pretty great, right? It's a really great technology, and everything. And it get him it make myself a target for him to like get rid of, because I'm not going to be in his camp. So I ended up that I got a lot of hard time simply because I take side for a technology that he didn't like. So I just want to share this kind of experience. Maybe in the future you might come across the same situation where one of the more powerful person want that kind of technology to go on in the company to be dominant technology, but you're not on his camp. You may be sidetracked, or you may be put in difficult situation. I just want to share that. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, Patrick.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is Ronnie. I think, yeah, I kind of agree with that, and that's one of the biggest fear. And actually, I do have it too. And knowing the new people and not knowing them, how they will be, and responding to certain things. I'm probably talking to Tom right now because I know Bob, and Bob is talking to Tom. But if there's nobody, and you're in a new company, guess what's happened? You're gonna be pretty much wait for somebody to ask you something rather than you speak up, because you don't want to be on the darker list.
Yes, good point. Good point. Yeah, Amanda says always know who you're talking to. Can be right and still get kicked out of the room because they say it to the wrong person. True. And don't be a pushover. That's good. Always speak up. And missing some details can cause late nights. Yes. I think we've probably all been through that, haven't we? Very good. All right. I have one other question here for us. All right. So you heard a little bit about when I was let go, I said that what caused that was a lack of clarity in communication. So what are some things that you guys do? And I know as BAs, this is probably right in your wheelhouse where you're trying to get people aligned on communication. But what are some things you do to help make sure we're aligned on communication? We're clear what the objective is, what the outcome, what is needed. So reiteration, yes. Tell them again, and then tell them again. Documentation and clear communication. Yes. Yes, that's good, Bob. Don't forget to ask, or don't be afraid to ask questions. That's been one I have had to learn many times, Bob. I assume some things and it gets me into trouble. Yeah, that's good, Trish. Kind of define the words of who we and they are. Yeah, a lot of times we throw around terms, don't we, that we need to probably have a level set and explain what we mean by that. Very good. Good advice. Send it in writing. Save the transcript. Yeah. It's good to have notes and documentation and things just in case we have a little discussion later, don't we, Travis? Yeah, very good. Very good. All right. So as you heard this whole presentation, oh, here we go. From a book years ago, Key to Communication is say it 3 times. Yeah. Tell you. Yep. Yeah, that's, Jaron, that reminds me of, and some of you, if you've done Toastmasters, you've probably heard that too, that same thing where you'll say, oh, you're going to tell them what you're going to tell them, and then kind of have a recap where you tell them again. So that's very good advice. So as you heard this whole presentation, and you guys are being here, so and as BAs, you guys have those strong soft skills, but what are some things you've done to work on those soft skills, be it, communication, be it, just, some of the other things we've talked about, relationship building consensus, influence, some of those things that, you BAs, like I said, this is right in your wheelhouse. This is things you guys are doing day in and day out to kind of help drive change in organizations. Listening. That's the overlooked one sometimes, isn't it, in communication? Listening to others, attending sessions like this. Yeah, always learning. Yep. Read books on EQ, emotional intelligence. Very good. Yeah. 4 components of emotional intelligence. So Bob, do you know those, or do we need to quiz you? Or I don't know if I know them. So
yeah, I think it starts with being able to reflect upon yourself, and then reflect on how you interact with others, and then reflect on what others need. And I forgot what the 4th one is, but there was definitely 4 components to a book that I read a long time ago, and tests on them. And you take the test as part of the book, and some of the results that come back are kind of surprising, because I think everybody, everybody feels sometimes that they're the sun and everybody else are the planets. And it's not that kind of relationship.
Yeah, that's a good reminder. We need to know. Be a lifelong learning process. Yeah, what's worked at previous companies may not work. That's a good point. I know a lot of people run into that, and I myself have fell victim to that one. So that's good. You kind of have to adapt and respond as different things. Consider how you would respond to what you're about to. Yeah, that's good, Travis. Kind of look at it from the other perspective, right? That's good. Very good. Excellent. All right. Well, with that, I guess I have no other questions. If you guys have any other questions, if not, I can turn this back over to Bob. Appreciate your time. So I will turn it back over to you, Bob. I'm going to put in my, just want a last quick note. If you guys want to connect with me on LinkedIn, I'm just going to put my connection in the chat if you want. And if there's a place where you think this speech or topic would work, feel free to reach out. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Tom. That was a great presentation. I think you're a great storyteller, first of all, very animated, using inflection, right, and emotion. Feel like I live vicariously through your career. And interactive, which is great. And there's a lot of good lessons in there. So we really appreciate it. Thank you for taking the time to share with us. The IBA, the Stack Valley IBA, has a $25 gift card that we'll send you from Amazon, so it's not spam.
Thank you.
Hopefully it'll get through. If it doesn't, we'll follow up with you. And thank you again so much. All right, let me. So now we're at the point where we're going to do the raffle, and I'll just pop my screen on. I think I got just about everybody who's online, and most of you put your names in. Thank you, but you have to be present because now we're down to 21 participants. So when I call out somebody's name, I need them to acknowledge that they're still here. All right, so let me share my screen. All right, can you guys see the screen that says Raffle Randomizer?
Yes.
You can see that, okay.
Yeah, I can see it.
So Steve gave me this randomizer, and I put in the names of everybody that I could see. So there's some where there's like not a last name or whatever, but if that person wins, then we'll just need to get that. And it goes to 100. So We may get a few try agains. And all I have to do is hit the X and hit enter. Okay, and the winner is try again. Try again. Okay. First winner of the $15 gift card is Dele. Is Dele still on?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So as long as you signed up for this and we have your email address, Steve will get the gift card over to you in a few days. He's away, so he'll do that in a few days. All right, let's get the $25 gift card winner. And try again, try again. Sam. Okay, so Sam is the $25 gift card winner. Is Sam still on?
Yes, I am, and thank you.
All right, Sam. So you're all set. And thank you for everyone else for sharing your time with us. I know that these are busy days for everybody. And our next meeting is going to be in November. Look for an announcement on that. There really won't be like a presentation topic. We might have a few little things, but it's going to be more about talking about the upcoming year and giving away some more gift cards. All right. Thank you all. And thanks again, Tom.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Bob.
Yeah.
Thanks.